Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL On The Go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere, at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go! With DHL On The Go. Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL on the go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere, at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go! With DHL on the go.
Hi everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the grand finale of the Digital X Data 2020 live virtual conference. We hope you have enjoyed the Youth Empowerment Power Panel and the People track earlier this morning. If this is your first session, and whether you are currently watching this on WebEx, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, thanks for joining us. And if you have been with us for the past 4 days, thank you so much for your great support. Once again, my name is Myra from Star Media Group's award-winning Rage Investigative Journalism team, and I'm your host for this 4-day live virtual conference. For those of you who have just joined us, I'm excited to share with you that we are running a special daily prize draw at this program. We have a total of 24 prizes to be given away, and this is your last chance to win any of these 3 exciting prizes at each of our 8 sessions. We have the Philips Bluetooth wireless headphones. We have our Skull Candy wireless headphones. We have Honor Band 5 Sports Edition. And all you need to do is stay with us till the end of the session, and you will stand a chance to win any of these exciting prizes. And we will be contacting today's winners sometime early next week. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping matters. Please be patient if you experience any technical or internet glitches. This is a live online event, and everyone dials in from different internet bandwidths and devices. For WebEx participants, your microphone and video cam are turned off by default, but feel free to chat with our events crew directly if you need any assistance. And you can also email us at events@thestar.com.my. Lastly, and most importantly, please engage, learn, and enjoy. Okay, we are entering the final thematic track of the conference, the Reach track, which is powered by Kantar. Building a strong brand in digital is more important than ever. Lockdowns have changed the way consumers use media. Some behaviors will come back to normal, but others are here to stay. To open the final session of the conference, our keynote speaker will be guiding us on turning up the volume where creativity and emotions in advertising matter more than ever. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the media and communications lead at Kantar Malaysia, Marco Chavez.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the conference. Today is the fourth day, and thank you for spending the last 4 days with us. All very relevant and timely topics throughout from different colors and flavors of data and digital. Thank you for joining me today for the Reach track, which, to my interpretation, is all about making meaningful connections. In line with the overarching theme of this conference, I'll share with you how data can help in making better business decisions. But before we start, let me get a few things out of the way and set the context for this afternoon's sharing. The pandemic has been somewhat the star, no pun intended, of the show so far. It has certainly changed the Malaysia business landscape in many ways than one. COVID was the biggest agent of change, innovation, and business overhauls, and in fact, transformation. In the communications industry alone, COVID stopped advertisers in its tracks. Some have moved along, and some are just warming up again. And how are businesses welcoming this change? In a survey done by Kantar, there are 5 key transformation areas that businesses in Malaysia want to focus on, chief of which is marketing and sales strategies, which also covers strengthening e-commerce platform, which has become a ubiquitous channel throughout the pandemic. And one area that is likewise interesting is better and faster access to data, which means the need to be informed and help in decision making. Then there's more good news. Malaysia's digital transformation is the highest in the Southeast Asian region when it comes to increasing or introducing e-commerce capabilities. This is certainly a good sign because we are turning around the consequences of COVID into something more positive. It is a full ahead for e-commerce in Malaysia. We have been very quick to recognize digitization and to adopt e-commerce with existing available facilities and avenues. However, there are still development stages, for example, creating new channels in place of physical ones, and not yet developing crucial customer experience or differentiation between online and offline channels. Virtually every business we interviewed for this study agreed that consumer behavior has changed for the better, whether it is how they shop, their product needs, or their customer service needs. We need to reset what we know about consumers' behavior in the future. History has taught us that businesses that are brave during recessionary periods rebound much stronger. And as the MCO progresses with no clear sight of when the pandemic would end, there is just a future tendency for people to keep preferring e-commerce. And when it comes to channels that Malaysians are using the most, digital platforms are becoming very prominent, given the restrictions to a limited movement to go out. The very apt phrase of working from home is no longer the exception, and it has certainly pushed at-home media even higher. For example, surfing, video consumption, and social network are still the highest activities observed mainly for entertainment. Widespread apps have gone up even more, and new entrants like the very fun TikTok are reshaping the landscape. And each time spent has likewise increased, some to as high as 30%. And thus you see is gonna be a lot of scrolls, a lot of swipes, and a lot of skips as well. So the new stage is set for the businesses in Malaysia, and how do we now perform in this new stage? The bigger question ahead that we need to ask is in fact, certainly there will be more data, and how do you use them? Secondly, the trilogy of content, context, and creativity will ever be more important. And how should we work towards optimizing them? And of course, lastly, as there will be air of uncertainty, the need for speed and agility will always be there to adapt to new scenarios. And how do we leverage our top technology to help us go through? We've all seen Malaysian, this very familiar framework of meaningful connections, and they remain fundamentally the same. From identifying your audiences, to planning strategies, to detailing your activities, and measuring how your plan is delivered. During the pandemic, they remain the same, however, with some new considerations to ensure that we are cognizant of the changes of COVID's impact. Chief of which is audience migration, mainly moving to digital. Secondly is the fact that we're doing more digital activities now, including rewriting or reinforcing our strategies on digital. And lastly, being mindful of not just the short, but also our long-term goals as a brand. On that note, I will be sharing with you 6 must-dos in a post-COVID world, and I hope you learn a nugget or two. So let's get right to it. Some of us are obsessed with having a digital strategy, when in fact, we should have a strategy on digital. And the shift in focus makes all the difference. Digital activities have typically increased with more platforms being considered. Some marketers are rushing towards churning out digital plans left and right, but often they're not recalibrating for the new normal, including reassessing how fit the platforms are. And thirdly, having the right combination of media is critical because it adds to at least 19%, not 0%, 19% in ROI. So we get this question a lot, and as to what the best role for media, for digital is, or if digital can help build brands. And this is an analysis from our cross-media database where we created the share of impact for each of the media. As you can see, all media have an impact in parts of the funnel, but clearly some media work better in some parts. For example, TV or cinema on building brand awareness. You have online video on motivation, and thirdly, you have social media for association. And there's also the need for you to combine different media like TV, video, and social media to have a better impact across the funnel. So yes, to answer the question, digital definitely have a role in the funnel, which ultimately leads to brand building. And if you have to synergize digital activities with other media, what would it be? All channels, as you see in this chart, see brand building benefits from synergies. But some channels work particularly well with each other. For example, the strongest synergies that we saw are observed between television and Facebook and out-of-home and newspapers. It does vary, though, from category to category, from brand maturity or in advertising, as well as how long the brand has been in the market. But the point is, marketers should know what synergies are working best for their categories as well as for their brands. Knowing which media to activate can also spell the difference between having just a 19% higher in ROI from using just 2 media, or as high as 35% by using 5 different media channels. Do more with less. We hear this very often in the advertising and research industry, and we can't escape it. But I think the right question, in fact, to pose is, you have to be wiser with less. Doing a lot does not even mean, or doesn't often mean, you're doing the right things. But being wiser suggests that your approach is sound. And one of the wisest things to do in spending smarter and bigger, and not bigger, correct me. And the wise marketers know where to spend, including which pieces of content to invest behind. And this is important because our studies have shown that customizing content to digital platforms will increase campaign impact by as much as 67%. And in Malaysia, businesses have recognized the need for a fresh understanding of communications in order to talk to and talk better with consumers. This is the new numbers that we're seeing in post-COVID, which is a good one. And one of the most impactful ways that we know of communication is definitely through advertising. For the most part, in Malaysia, advertising is a welcome distraction, especially in the pandemic. Consumers perceive advertising as a relief or a promise. I'm showing you here some of the 6 reasons and verbatims that we got from consumers about what they think about advertising during the pandemic. For example, they look at ads to help them escape about the worries in the pandemic. People need a diversion from what's going on. More people are like watching television. And post-pandemic, there are 3 themes that we think brands can consider when they develop their next pieces of content for consumers. Number 1 is that content should entertain and engage. Number 2, that content should be fun. And number 3, if you have the recycled content or your previous content, it still can work. And let me take you some of the examples. Number 1, for example, to illustrate, this is an example from KTM where they post a chart mapping out station stops at home during the MCO to entertain the public. Instead of the usual map title, it's simply read Stay Home Route Map, which drives the message very clear. Secondly, Unify, advertisement of Mesh, does not quote the current MCO situation, and it is accompanied instead with humor and social gathering, which is warmly received by viewers. Very relevant. It was situational that everyone understood without having to remind people about the situation that we are all in. And brands was neatly woven into the story as well. And thirdly, if you have no time to shoot for a new content, not a problem. For example, DJ repackaged its previous messages of staying connected in his DG Cares ads, and it became relevant again due to the current context. And if marketers want great confidence in their decisions as to which pieces of content they should put investment behind, there is Link for that, an extremely powerful tool that will give you the right answers that you often ask. And right now, we are also able to confidently answer. And I'm going to share with you this video. So it comes in the dashboard. You have a snapshot of diagnosis and it's performed ads, engagement, brand consideration. For example, if it's engagement, is your ad engaging an ad link in the brand? You're able to see that. You have measures for that right in the dashboard. It will help you in identifying whether your ad is delivering on that particular metric. It also incorporates facial coding in our system, where the system 1 measurement or emotional responses. Overall reaction is being captured in expressiveness right in front of it. You're also able to answer, is my ad helping you? Persuasion measures also increase in short-term purchases, intention, and brought to you by the brand. Right, so Link empowers marketers. With Link, you can test digital now, TV, print, radio, even outdoor content at speed. Not only that, you will have confidence, data-driven decisions about what works and how to optimize your creative. Kantar is the only leading full-service research agency to have a dedicated global neuroscience practice. We've already assessed masses of ads with facial coding, enabling us to tell you what the unfiltered response is for your content. We think marketers would love it the moment they try it. Third one, all brands have a desire to be seen or heard for the right reasons, of course. But there's also one desire that I think we should aim for as well, and that is to come up in search results relevantly. In this digital age, the importance of search behavior cannot be overstated. Share of search is probably a metric that we should be hearing more of, because based on our research showing our brand's share of search is a strong indication of salience, and higher salience often lead to sales. Share of search is defined as a volume of search queries for a brand as a proportion of all the search queries for all the brands defined in a category. It's based on exactly the same principle as share of market, but it uses the number of times a brand's name is being typed on Google. We know it's very simplistic, but often neglected. Our experts say that share of search can be a successor to share of voice or can be an accurate lead indicator of market share. In fact, share of search is getting more attention now, and quite rightly so. It's proven to be indicative of important brand outcomes, and when used in combination with other brand indicators, has the potential to identify opportunities for brands to grow. It is particularly, in this particular example, brands above the line are generating more search interest than expected, while the reverse is true for those who belong below the line. We can take this analysis a step further and use it to estimate how levels of search are likely to be impacted if you spend more or less to make better decisions. Not only is search data one of the most powerful sources of insights, we recognize that there's also sales, survey, media spends, or even external data because they are as rich. We have made significant investment in the development of a platform that crunches data and finds meaning in the organized chaos. We call this the Integrated Insights Engine, which answers some of a marketer's most challenging business questions or prompts him or her to act on underlying trends before competition does. And the fourth one, must-do resolve, is around the trilogy, or what we call the 3 C's of content, context, and creativity. It's one of the toughest to crack, to be honest, but when you do, it's one of the most rewarding as well. And what do we mean by this? Having the right content deserves to be in the right context. They need to be in sync. And the ones who consistently do this are often the brands, or often the most profitable ones, are usually the brands that we know and love who have devoted time and investment in research. We have run an analysis in cross-media database, and we have found that all starts with a very good creative. Creative accounts for 50% of impact, while media accounts for the other 50. However, further challenge in digital, as we know, is no two digital platforms work in the same way. In Facebook, you need to grab attention and literally stop consumers in their tracks. In Instagram, it's a different story. Its visual quality is the name of the game. In Twitter, it has to be love at first sight. And of course, lastly, for example, you have Snapchat and TikTok, where entertainment that is enjoyable and is the most one that gets the highest engagement. And to make digital more interesting, TikTok decided to join in on the fun. TikTok is the fastest growing platform in the world and has reached comparable levels of Twitter in Malaysia in some user segments, especially the young ones. However, less than half of marketers are testing little to no content at all. And for the most part, the reason is because cost and the time it takes for results to become available has been very challenging. We've all changed that. We are now able to overcome cost and time barriers by leveraging on technology. In terms of cost of testing, it's about a quarter of the cost compared to how it is done before. Context Lab is a solution underpinned by technology, which enables marketers to test the efficacy of content on a test site. This allows us to control advertising or pieces of content without a live campaign. This realistic testing means that we can recommend optimal context to drive your brands depending on the consumer's response. We can use this approach for paid media, influencer activity, or any other different context within an individual platform or website. And if previously it takes about a month for results to be available, you can now have them in as fast as 48 hours. And we think marketers would also really love this when they try it. The fifth one, e-commerce. We've heard about our experts on this very stage a couple of days ago, and I'm sure we've learned a lot from them as well. And I don't have to hammer the importance of e-commerce, but if you allow me to make another reminder, it is to design for shopper centricity. What does it mean to be shopper-centric in this online context? It's essentially removing all the possible barriers to conversion. And some of those barriers are operational, for example, delivery, payment methods, and shipping costs. And one loop that marketers should strongly capitalize as people flock to the digital space is what we call C-commerce or conversational commerce. C-commerce is any online commerce activity that uses a conversation interface to speak directly to consumers. I think some of you may have experienced this. It can take the form of, for example, a chat box, either using a bot or humans, or a messaging platform like WhatsApp or even Viber, or other natural language interface, for example, hey Alexa, add a sanitizer to my cart. In Malaysia, brands like Unify, AirAsia, and Maxis have capitalized on this technology, and we think this will be the new norm in making meaningful, stronger connections with brands to consumers. Finally, and certainly not the least, is about measurement. We keep on reminding our partners that if they have been spending so much time and energy on how to brilliantly execute a plan, they also need to have a plan to evaluate how they are performing. How did my campaign perform overall, and what brand building role did each channel play? Which channels build my brand most efficiently? How can I improve my media mix in my next campaign? Very tough questions that need a great deal of research to be answered. In fact, advanced modeling now allows us to compare exposure levels with brand attitudes in order to understand which channels have generated which kind of brand response. Our analytic routines, for example, have ensured that we only identify real and significant media contributions. Evaluating performance will be an all-win situation because you'll know what to do next in your campaigns. In this particular example, TV across the board is delivering across all the brand metrics. However, if you look at online display, while your share of spend may be less, it's delivering very high on the third brand metric. And you have to be very cognizant of all these contributions across your brand metrics because it influences how much investments you need to put behind each of your media. Okay, very quickly, there you have it, 6 must-dos, and I hope you'll apply as much of them when you think about having your next digital strategy on digital. These 6 fall neatly into the communications framework that we are already familiar with. Okay? This whole conference has taught us so much about data and how-tos of digital. Today, we've added one more, which is the importance of content, context, and creativity, as well as why speed and agility should be our new way of working. These are not new buzzwords, but they are certainly take on a new meaning in a post-COVID world. To wrap, however, whoever we think is able to adapt to new conditions, is open to what data is telling them, to those who are brave, we think will recover quickly and win 2021. And as a welcome to the holidays, we at Kantar would like to give a gift to everybody to help set your course for the coming year. There's nothing more we'd like to see than all of us coming out much better than how we started 2020. We'll make this available for you to download, or if you scan the QR code that you see on your screen now, our 2021 media trends and predictions. And that's it for me this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll see you in the panel talk a little later.
Thank you so much, Marco. Indeed, it was a very insightful presentation. I think my favorite part, because at Rage, we also exist on a digital platform as well. The fact that he pointed out that different digital platforms need different angles in order to make it sell and work on that particular platform. I think that's really, really true. Something that hopefully is very, very informative to everybody who's watching. Our Gigabyte partner today, Triton Digital, is coming up next to complement the Reach track. The speaker is the Director of Market Development in Southeast Asia and South Asia for Triton Digital, and he comes with more than 23 years of experience in the media and entertainment industry. In this session, the speaker will share valuable insights on how the media works, with a special focus on how podcasts are naturally suited for the print and news medium, that it helps such organizations create a valuable and compelling digital propositions to thrill their audiences. So his name is Aditya Sumanwar. We'll look forward to that. However, we are going to take a short break, and we'll see you at 2:45 p.m. So grab that coffee, toilet break, and also grab that cat. You know the drill. I'll see you guys at 2:45.
Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Aditya Samanwar, and I'm the Market Development Director for South Asia and Southeast Asia at Triton Digital. Triton Digital is a global leader in audio technology, and we provide services to podcasters, broadcasters, and audio publishers, and we help them to distribute, measure, and monetize their content. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Star Group to invite us to be a part of this Digital X Data event 2020. And what I'd like to talk to you about today is podcasting and print. So this is a match made in heaven, and really what I would like to emphasize here is that going forward, this opportunity is not one to be ignored. So I'm going to let you read that and let that sink in for just a second. So the daily news podcasts make up less than 1% of all those produced. So essentially, in the millions of podcasts that are made, only 1% are daily news. Yet, 10% of all of that consumption happens around that 1% of content. Therein lies the opportunity. But then again, don't take my word for it. So the analysts project that podcasting in general, and I will drill down to this more narrowly on print, are saying that podcasts will see 22% growth over the next 5 years. If you look at all of the industries, some of them, the traditional media industries are seeing degrowth. Some of them are trying to reinvent themselves. If you look at the table on the left there, or the chart on the left there, which talks about music and radio and podcasts, and then you explode the podcast piece out of that, we see that podcasts are going to take up and make up for 1.5 billion listeners, and it's going to generate revenue in excess of $4 billion in the next 5 years. It's really not an opportunity to be missed. So just drilling down into that sort of audience growth, right? So if you look at what podcasts mean for traditional media in general, it means that you get access to a much younger audience in a different space. Now, Triton Digital does, partners with Edison Research in the US, and we do a report called the Infinite Dial every year. What we find, and what we have found in the Infinite Dial, is that podcasts is a medium that attracts younger audiences. Now, that in itself being a statement to traditional media to take into account that, if you want to really cross over that barrier, yet maintain your journalistic integrity and reach out to that audience that's consuming in a different space, podcast is a great way to do it. Also, it is a balanced medium. So it reaches, from what we see in the US, and if the US is a crystal ball to look at, we are at the early stages of this, and so if the US were to be a crystal ball, and say, what happens there will probably happen here in the next 2 or 3 years, we would be able to say that, yes, this is an audience that's going to be balanced, it's going to be engaged, and it's going to be different from what I have right now. So just sticking to that note, why does being in podcasts help you as a publisher, a newsprint or a magazine publisher, right? So what it allows you to do is it allows you to reach your audiences in different spaces. If you look at reading a book or reading a paper or watching TV or watching YouTube or consuming content in any way where you are leaning front or you are actively engaged in that content, means that you can't do anything else. However, in the audio space, what you can do is you can consume that media as well as do other things. It allows you to multitask. So it's when I say it's a lean back, it's a little bit of a lie, because you don't lean back. podcasts get consumed when people are going on walks, people are at the gym, people are doing other things, driving cars, commuting. And so it allows you to reach that audience in different spaces. It allows you to reach new audiences, younger audiences, like I just demonstrated. So younger audiences consume media very differently, and to be able to really transition yourself from the old media to the new media, you need to be present in places where they are. The other thing it does is it allows you to increase your social visibility. Now, all print and all news outlets have great amount of social reach, right? And that's largely around impactful pictures, great amount of text, videos, but this gives you that added dimension of social consumption in audio. The other thing it does is it allows you a great deal of insight. So with the measurement, being a digital platform, obviously measurement is something that is an expectation, and it's a downright requirement when you publish content. What podcasts do is give you a good amount of information about how people are consuming your content, where they're consuming it, what they're doing, when they're consuming that, and all of these layers of data, which, in the true sense, when you look at a newspaper, you're not able to tell, oh, he got through the first 4 lines of this article, whereas you could say, well, he listened through till 25 minutes of this podcast, and what really happened here to make your content decisions. Why did the person leave? Why is there something that I'm writing that shouldn't be writing about, or should I be writing more about? Plus, it's habit forming, right? So I always say that this coffee and newspaper habit of mine is then followed immediately by a gym and podcast habit. So I look forward to my coffee and newspaper, but then immediately after that, I have 5 or 7 podcasts that I would go and listen to loyally, and I would be engaged with that. So besides feeling healthy when leaving the gym, I also feel more enriched by listening to a podcast. So that's me, but that's also a lot of other people. And lastly, obviously, podcasting it is a monetizable medium. It is probably a very highly monetizable audio medium. And I will dwell upon that subject a little bit later on in this presentation, right? Also, for print, now in Malaysia, really, I have been with Triton since February, and I have been beating down the door of most of my print friends in the country and trying to convince them and sell the snake oil that is podcast. But it is not snake oil, because everybody is doing it. You won't be alone in this space. Probably the most definitive example of this is the New York Times and the Daily, and one of my personal favorites. I'm from India, so the 3 Things podcast that the Indian Express does, and these are really platforms to be able to give journalists who are natural born storytellers the depth and the breadth of expression, of really bringing out their journalistic qualities, of being able to tell a story in the way that the story should have been told, not confined by column centimeters or what the editor has to say. Well, the editor still has something to say, but this is really where you can pick and go after. You can go after a story, follow that up, even if it can't make it into tomorrow's edition, right? That is something that is that the platform allows. It allows you to spin off from one particular story and just kind of go down that in great detail, interview people, all of this stuff, right? But more than everything, it is a habit, and it is something that a lot of people are doing. I mean, we're going to have billions of listeners listening to podcasts. So it's certainly a space that should be considered. News and podcasts, again, like I said, and this is probably reiterating that opening slide of mine, which was to talk about that 1% of podcasts are daily news. And really, why isn't there more? Because it is a habit. It is something that is easy to distribute. It is something that you are already creating as newspapers and news businesses. And so it is just offering up the audiences a new way of consuming in a way that they might find more convenient. in some cases, because they may feel like they don't want to be leaning front, and they want to lean back and do other things while consuming this. And so that's the big opportunity here. Obviously, being a part of that revenue growth that podcasts are going to see is something that newspapers are naturally fit to do, and I will talk about that as well in a little bit. So why is it such a perfect partner? And I will go on about this a little bit, right? Because I said that they are, number one, it's a habit-forming media consumption. So podcasts, generally you would subscribe, it would be there in your list of subscribed podcasts, and you would listen to it every day, go back there, you're engaged with the hosts, you're engaged with the journalists that are telling you those stories. The second thing is that podcasts, and I've been on several panels that have spoken about this, what makes a podcast successful? So obviously the content has to be great, but besides that, because you want to form that habit, podcasts need to be frequent. They need to be something that comes out and refreshes itself on a time interval that is dependable. So essentially, you need to be ensuring that you can't just do a podcast once a month and say that, oh, now I'm not succeeding because I did that one podcast, it didn't work. You need to keep at it, and you need to keep making sure that you're delivering fresh content to your listener, just as you do with any other media. But you need to make sure that it's there, it's refreshed, and that habit is fulfilled, right? The third thing is that it is journalists are great storytellers, right? And podcast is a medium for you to be able to tell stories. And this is sort of, it goes back to your very childlike instinct to be told a story when you're going to bed, or to be told a story, right? Versus having to read it. Like, I look at my kids homeschooling now, and I ask them to read something, and they absolutely hate it. Well, sorry, but they do. But if you tell them that, hey, listen, you can be playing something or kicking a ball or bouncing a ball, but listen to this, they find it much more engaging, and they retain a lot of that, right? So that is our basic thing. If somebody were to tell us something, just like our grandmother told us a story, or somebody told us a story, that would stay with us, and we can feel passionately about that. Also, lastly, because journalists write stories, this is just another way to repurpose that same story and create something that is consumed in a different fashion. So now we move to sort of, well, how do I get creating podcasts, right? So a lot of, I was talking to our host earlier, and we were having a little conversation around the affinity towards video, and I think it's great, right? Obviously, a lot of organizations would look at moving to video and creating video content and compelling video content, and that makes sense. Obviously, the CPMs are higher. There's a lot of consumption that happens. There's a lot of audiences available on platforms like YouTube and Facebook where video content is compelling. But just to that point, I feel that is always a consumption that is happening in a active lean front means. Whereas you're leaving all of that other time where people are doing other things and they're not consuming your content. Whereas you could be reaching out to them and engaging with them in those times, and with audiences that may not be interested in video or may not have the time to really engage and do that. So it's a great sort of platform to do that. And so coming back to my point, I digressed. But creating podcasts is really easy. It's not as it's much more inexpensive than creating video. At a very base level, I was in the offices of Star today, and I saw that there were small meeting rooms here and there, which is great for collaboration, but I'm sure that they could sacrifice one meeting room to sort of put up a laptop, isolate the sound a little bit, and plug in a microphone, right? And have somebody read out a podcast every day, 2 stories, 3 stories, just picked, And then the rest is just really easy, right? But look, that's a basic level. You can podcast from home, but for an organization to create a good podcast, you need to create it well. You need to have the sound effects. You need to have all of the things done for you. But you may not want to invest in all of that, and you may want to try it out to begin with. So it comes down to, you could invest in all of that stuff yourself, or say, okay, while I'm going to try this out, I'm going to invest a little bit of money, contract a bunch of studios in Malaysia are available with voiceover artists to be able to say, okay, I'm going to send you 3 stories a day, and you get your voice talent to read it, send it back to me for editorial approval, and I will publish it, right? It's as easy as that. The third thing is that you also record. Like, most journalists go out there and they will record an interview like that, and basically bring that home, put on their headphones, sit down, write a story, and then use that, and that will go to print. The same news bites that you're taking, the quotes that you get, the interviews that you use, can be repurposed as audio. They were audio in the first place. And so it's really easy to repurpose those, make them part of your podcast, where if you were saying, and then XYZ said, and you can kind of play that back, and it's really easy to be able to do that. So obviously that's another way. The fourth way to be able to do it, and the lowest hanging fruit, I suppose, is text-to-speech. I am not a big advocate for text-to-speech myself. It is a possibility, but I think that while synthetic voice has come a long way, I don't think that natural voice processing has, as yet, it is still, human beings can tell when other human beings are talking to them, and I think that still has some way to go. It's getting much better. The BBC did a project recently which is sounding good, but you can still tell that it is a voice, it is a synthetic voice. So now, assuming that you have, you've been sold by everything I had to say, and you say, well, I'm going to create the podcast. Yeah, I've got a podcast. What am I going to do with it, right? So then next thing comes to distributing your podcast. And how do you distribute your podcast? And so distributing your podcast is not very different from something that news outlets are used to already. A lot of you are syndicating your content and sending it to other news outlets to pick up and then put on their platforms, or you are syndicating content from other news outlets and bringing that content into your own environment. Similarly, podcasts function through RSS feeds, right? So these RSS feeds then move on to the next level, which is the podcatchers or the aggregators. And while kind of rehearsing this a little bit, I was trying to think about context to Spotify, to iTunes, to Google Podcasts, to Stitcher, to radio.com, and all of the other podcast distribution or aggregation platforms where there are millions of people already sitting. And the comparison I got was the news agents, right? Or the guy that delivers the newspaper to your house. You have to treat them like that. Your newspaper or your podcast needs to be at all of the agents, right? And it needs to be seen by people. So these are places where, these are news agents in a mall. That mall has 1 million people in it, or 20 million or 100 million people in it. Something like Spotify, where you have to have your podcast in there and immediately leverage that audience that's sitting there, right? And then obviously the next place is that, well, I'm not just going to distribute my podcast and have that audience there. The great thing about that is that, you create great value for your advertiser, because your advertiser, podcasts work in a way where the ads are stitched in server side before they are served. And really Spotify cannot remove those ads from your podcast. So those podcasts go in with the ads. And you can now kind of use their audience to monetize your content, which is a great beneficial tool, right? But besides that, the biggest value you get is by having that audience on your own digital properties. So you could, there are podcasters that do this, where they essentially put 3 podcasts on Spotify and then try and drive back audiences to their own property, or they put only teaser content on podcatchers and bring that back to their own properties for the full story or for the in-depth story, where you can really enjoy that first-party data and you can get that registration data, and you can then create a much more compelling proposition for your advertiser if that's the way you're going to monetize podcasts. Podcasts are easily distributable, right? So WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, all of them, there is a way to get your podcasts out there. Your existing social channels would be refreshed with content that is not just video and text. And now you have audio as well. So it's kind of watch, listen, and read, right? And all of those three consumption methods for human beings would now be covered. And now I'm assuming that you have started distributing your content, but you'd really like to know, well, if I'm doing all of this, it's digital, so I need to be able to measure my content. And how do I measure my content? So, the IAB, the Interactive Advertising Bureau, and this is not something that you have to go and convince an advertiser to say that, hey, listen, buy my podcast because I got XYZ. There is a currency. The IAB V2 guideline, now the V2.1, which was published yesterday, kind of defines how podcasts are to be measured and what the currencies are around measuring that. I'm not going to go deep into that, but it is readily available on the IAB Tech Lab website. And what we use, or what generally is used in the world, is downloads as a currency for podcast measurement. And by download, I don't mean that the file is being transferred onto the person's device and he's storing it there forever, but downloads is just a means, because it is an RSS feed, that file is being transferred to the person's device. Not that it has to be stored. It could be consumed through streaming. It could be consumed through progressive download. It could be consumed as a fully downloaded file as well. But because the file is being transferred from the hosting server to the consumer, it's called a download. Measurement also allows you to track sort of, at a server side, multiple facets of consumption, including where that's being listened to, what device it's being listened on. You can figure out what platform it was being listened, whether it was which one of the podcatchers, whether it was your own, what kind of, whether it's mobile, whether it was web, whether it was your own app, somebody else's app, all of those things. Beyond that, what you can do is, on your own platforms, you can also get consumption data, like when did that person listen, how long did he listen for, how many people actually completed listening to that podcast, why did they drop off at that point, where did they come back onto that platform or that piece of content. You could then compare one against another, which is, you say, well, okay, I had that sports segment on yesterday's podcast, but it didn't have it today, and then I found that people were expecting it and dropped off at that point. So you can compare things like that, real in-depth analysis of the content itself to make those decisions. As well as what you could do is layer third-party and contextual data to create that really nice bundle for the advertiser, right? We have several tools for measurement. We run rankers in several countries. Triton has a legacy record of being almost the currency for podcast measurement, where in places like the US, we are plugged in with the buy side as well for them to make purchasing decisions around podcasts and streaming. But less on that right now. And now after the most interesting topic, I suppose, is monetizing podcasts, right? So is this really a monetizable platform? Obviously it is, and it fits in really nicely with your existing business. You don't need to create a new business out of this, or you need to find people to sort of sell it. Your existing salespeople and your existing sales relationships and your existing sales agencies or agents are able to quite easily bundle this, right? So I break it down into three ways of how podcasts can be monetized, and the first one is direct sales. Now this is something that most media houses do anyway. If they're free and ad funded, you already have sales teams on the ground, you have agency relationships, you have all of the tools that are required to be able to monetize this podcast. It's an easy enough medium to be able to bundle with your existing sales assets, and you're now able to offer a different media, right? Which is audio. Secondly, there's programmatic, right? So what is interesting here is that podcasts, even though they have this RSS, you can still do real-time bidding on podcasts, whether that's in the open marketplace or whether that is through direct deals or private marketplace deals. Podcasts are targetable inventory, and they are, and you have the ability to have that in the open marketplace for real-time bidding, right? And our own platform, YieldUp, which is a supply-side platform, does exceedingly well in podcast programmatic sales. And then the last part, which I would like to spend, I have 5 minutes left on this, but I would like to spend some time over here. And give you a scenario. Subscription is like the holy grail for everybody. That if you can have a repeat customer for something, it's great. It's supremely valuable. And podcasts allow you to do that in a way that you can offer a bundle. So for example, newspapers today are doing an e-paper edition where they are putting their real life like digital consumption behind a paywall or a registration wall. Now, in order to do that, a customer must sign up and share his credit card details if required, or however that payment happens, or whether it's just a registration so you get the first party data. Either way, it's behind some sort of a wall. Podcasts can sit there as well, and this is not just on your platform. So if somebody was consuming a podcast, say on Spotify, and they were used to consuming on Apple Podcasts, the app, or on Google, or wherever that is, you could still say that this is my podcast. If you are registered to my e-paper sign up, then you are able to get your podcast wherever you are going to consume them. And this can be only for those people that are subscribed versus the people who are not subscribed and not going to get it or get some sort of teaser content, right? So creating digital bundles is really easy. It is also transactional. So you can have a paid model, but I feel like in this part of the world, we're not just yet there to have people start paying for content too easily. And so I feel like the bundling and the subscriptions that create value are going to be the ones that would drive that from a transactional perspective. And then there's obviously the advertising. And lastly, I think that I've done well for time here, is really about the technology. So this is probably the salesy bit of this presentation where, and really speaking, this is a really great platform. So Omni Studio allows you to do all of this, right? So you just need to worry about creating the content, and we'll make sure that it's distributed, it's socially propagated, it is measured, it is, we will create all of the tools for monetizing that. We'll allow you to flight your own ads, and really, I mean, there's very little that our platform doesn't do by way of podcast besides create the podcast for you. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you again to the Star Group for allowing me this opportunity to speak about podcasts in print. And I would like to sort of throw it back to our lovely host.
Thank you so much, Aditya. And we were having a conversation behind the scenes. If you guys don't know, I'm also a journalist for Rich, and we mostly do video journalism. And I thought that this idea of podcasting was very interesting. And the reason why is because, okay, I'll tell you a story now, since it taps into our our fundamental need to hear stories. I remember when I was growing up that I was a voracious reader. Not to boast or anything, but I was. So it was like 2 books a week, active reading. And then recently, I think in the past 5 years, what I've noticed is that as opposed to reading actively, what I would do is I would get my information from YouTube videos or, from podcasts. And the reason why I did do that was because for the exact same reason that you did. You mentioned, right? Like I could be dancing, or I could be, okay, maybe not dancing, I could be cleaning my room, I could be driving, I could be brushing my teeth, in my private moments where I'm doing other things. When I say private moments, I mean putting a mask on and chilling at home. And I would listen to information, and that's how, I I absorbed it. And you're right, it is a habit. But, you know, talking about this shift in the way that people generally consume information, you know, because people, like, they're always on their phone now, right? But you're always doing multiple things. And you see platforms co-opting this technology in terms of their updates. So like now you can minimize YouTube so that you can have text message while also watching, you know, your YouTube channels. Obviously Spotify is a background app.
Yeah.
But regardless of all of this happening, right, in the past 5 years, and also the statistics that you've shown and the incredible potential for this market, why was it so difficult for you to sell the snake oil to the Malaysian news industries?
I don't think that it was, I don't think that it was difficult to sell the snake oil. Like, you know, that was a poor choice of words. I think that the audiences have not been, I think the audiences are ready now. I think one thing that has happened, as you know, as disastrous as COVID has been, is I think it gave people the time to try and explore new medias. The habits that were formed, but I think that now what's happened is that you've got, people had the time to explore. On, you know, the kind of data that we look at shows that the podcast growth in this market has been double digit in this last, just in the last 10 months, right? A lot of the podcasts that are being consumed are actually international podcasts. So one has to ask whether that's because just local content producers haven't created podcasts yet, or is it something that, you know, that there isn't that engaging content yet. And really people have started to take notice of that now, and I think it's the perfect opportunity and the time to be able to get into it. So I don't think it is that, you know, they didn't do something or, you know, we were not able to sell it. I think that the entire market, you know, radio broadcasters have been doing amazingly on podcasts. Their numbers are all there. But when you come to specifically news, I think that it is now time. People have consumed more news in this last, they just want to know what's in store for them, right? So, so I think it's given us that little push. It's given podcasts that little push that was required. It was already on a growth trajectory. And now I think that, you know, COVID-19 has, fortunately, unfortunately, given it that push where people have found the habit, and I'm sure that publishers will follow, right? So it's not that it's sort of, I missed something. It was just that it's the right time and we're at the right place, I think.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, sorry, I think maybe I phrased that question a little bit off. I guess I was wondering maybe why there is, but you answered it anyway. I guess I was wondering why there was a reluctance to you know, embrace this new format. But yeah, you did definitely answer that. I think this, sorry, we have I'm going to continue talking, but it's okay. We have questions from you all. So let's hear from the audience. We have Abdul from WebEx.
Yep.
I have done some podcasts for my clients. Are there any marketing tools that you can suggest to reach the right podcast listeners?
Right, that's a great question, right? So, so how do you reach the right podcast listeners? And I think that there's a couple of things in that question. So, what are great marketing tools? Let me start with one, right? I think the podcast itself is a great marketing tool. So, if you want to reach podcast listeners and you want to reach the right podcast listeners, what I would say is, look at other podcasts that are like your podcast and then advertise your podcast on that podcast, right? So that way, what you do is you propagate, so say suppose, right, you were doing a podcast around cars and maybe there was another podcast that was around cars or bikes, right, for that matter. So you could use that as a means to be able to market your existing podcast. So that's one. Secondly, obviously, the social channels are huge. They're, you know, podcasts, you're able to take snippets, send them across virally, whether that's on WhatsApp, whether it is, you know, creating just audiograms on Headliner. that can be put on Instagram, that can be put on Facebook. There are great tools like Headliner that allow you to be able to do that. And I would say that, yeah, your audiences are the best people that will propagate. The shareability, the social channels that they use are the best marketing tools. So if you have a loyal audience, reach out to them, tell them to subscribe, tell them to kind of make your podcast go viral.
Thank you. And that was a really good reframing of, I think, the way that you think about it, right? Because if you think about marketing tools, usually you think about advertising to different platforms. But this is kind of like, if you can market your own podcast on someone else's podcast, that's kind of like the Star advertising on, New Straits Time, or the New Straits Time advertising on the Star, which never happens. But
exactly.
It's a kind of a unique opportunity that I guess you have in the podcast industry. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so we have another question from Shilda from Facebook. Hi, Shilda. So, okay, this is an interesting question. I'm a journalist and a voice talent. Hi. How do I get potential clients to engage my voiceovers? Is there any podcast community databases that I can sign up for? That's a good question.
Podcast community databases, yes, there are. And in fact, on our platform, on Omni's platform, now I'm completely blanking on the name of it, but if Sylvia, you can I don't know, I'll find a way to get in touch with you, but there is a database of all of the podcast creator talent, right? Where people are able to come and reference and reach out to you directly, as well as if you have a show, it talks in depth about who you are and what your background is, et cetera, et cetera. It's sort of IMDb-ish platform that allows you to speak about who you are and what you've done. Right?
Thank you. Ooh, Sheila, I think that's. He's encouraging you to start your own podcast. I'm also encouraging you. All the best to you. Godspeed. We have another question from Xiao from WebEx. You mentioned that audio content are usually consumed with a more laid-back attitude as compared to video content, which require a dedicated lean-forward time. Are audio contents expected to be on less serious topics or issues?
Yeah. So when I said lean back, I kind of corrected myself, where I said, well, consumption is not really lean back. It just means that consumption is possible without having to be actively engaged, while you could still be active. And I think that, to your second question, which are contents, or is content expected to be less on less serious topics or issues? I think it's quite to the contrary, actually, that when you are listening to audio, I think that music has a lighter side to it, and there's music that has a serious side to it. But and just like that, I don't think that there's an expectation, especially when it comes to news. There is no expectation that it is to be less serious, or it is about being able to cover serious issues and to be able to go in depth of those. I mean, for example, I was recently able to partner with a company called Suno India, which is a social, I guess they deal with social topics. And I got listening to their podcast, and they were talking about adoption and the stigma of adoption. So I feel like that's, and they have 24 episodes of 27 minutes each on that topic. And it is stirring and kind of heart-wrenching in places, the interviews that they do, etc., which I feel is not necessarily less serious. So absolutely not. Their audio can be as serious as you want it to be. I don't think that there's any expectation for it to be less serious.
Thank you for that answer. I think the question definitely strikes a chord, because I guess when you think about audio, right, you think about radio, which is like generally very light, except for BFM. BFM does they have their podcasts and they have their in-depth ideas. So that's interesting. I think we've learned a lot, and I think definitely according to the questions, I'm pretty sure people are really engaged, because when I was coming out here, I'll tell all of you guys now, now, you will probably at one point passively listening to this if you're at home you're doing something else and then listening to the podcast. Listening to this conference, and that's generally what you do with podcasts as well. You're
Same
already doing it, it's possible. I just want to thank you so much for all of the information that you've shared, and I look
Absolutely.
forward to having you on the panel discussion after this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for all of you guys, I'll see you soon. I've changed my seats, and then I will introduce the panel. Bye, guys. Thank you very much, Aditya, for that very engaging presentation. And thank you so much for your questions at home. Ladies and gentlemen, to deepen and wrap up the Reach Track discussion, we are joined by a great panel lineup of industry-leading marketing, media, branding, digital, and programmatic subject matter experts and practitioners. Our first guest panelist, Dr. Nico Tan, specializes in tech adoption models and monetization. He is currently the Vice President of Marketing at Genting, Malaysia, and he has developed a new marketing framework that makes profits during a difficult time for the organization. Our second guest, Song Hock Kun, has for the past 30 years worked on various aspects of SMB's business processes, including improving its productivity and to grow their businesses via marketing campaigns. He is currently the Director of E-commerce at MDEC. Rejoining the panel is Aditya of Triton Digital and Marco of Kanta, who will be moderating the panel discussion. I hope you're excited for this final industry panel discussion of Digital X Data 2020 live virtual conference. And also, please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask them as soon as you have them, as fast as possible, because we want to have time in order to address all of them for you. So the panel is now getting ready. So please stay tuned, and we will be back in just a short while.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining us. I'm here with my distinguished panelists. And thank you again, Aditya, for the very insightful session you have. I have 40 questions to ask, and I don't think I have 45 minutes for you guys. And in fact, with the so many questions that I have, I don't even know what to answer. What to ask questions for you. Probably I just start. How are you guys doing? And how is it so far after being into COVID 9 months into the situation?
Should I start? Well,
Sure, go on, Nico.
I think, well, thank God I'm not crazy yet from being stuck at home. Something to dream by. But if you're asking about how we are at our office, or our day-to-day lives, I think like everybody else, we are trying to figure things out. Nobody really has gone through a pandemic like this, so we're okay. I mean, I'm from the tourism travel industry, so I think the problem with my industry is that nobody really could travel at this point in time. I wish I was with Lazada right now. They're doing so well. They've actually gotten most of my money. So, but at the end of the day, I think we're doing fine. I think it's about to end. I really hope so. So when the market is back again, then I'm sure we're gonna be better.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. For me personally, now we work from home most of the time, and my what do you call that? My calendar is like a wallpaper every week. It's like it's full of. I start with beginning of the week. It's like 2 or 3. Suddenly, that we have more than I have like 2 or 3 double booking every day. So that is for myself personally. But for MDEC as an organization, we are very, very active currently. As you know, we are all over the place, right?
Great.
So why? Because digitalization, it seems to be the answer to what we are facing currently. And I think that is blessing in disguise during this period of time, that we really moved the nation forward, accelerated the digitalization process of the businesses. Yeah. So we are busy, but busy for good reason. Yeah.
And I like the contrast, busy, and in Nico's case, slightly slowing down. And
Oh, I didn't say I'm not busy. My boss is listening, so.
Okay. And how about you, Aditya? How are you?
So from my end, look, I think it's fantastic to just be in a place where there's 4 adults in one place, right? Like, I've been working from home. I would have seen your faces in just windows generally, and that's how I've done a few of these seminars across the region, and it's just so. When they told me that, you come to Manara Star, I was like ready that day, right? That I'm coming now itself, right? Just let me out of my house. So I mean, from a personal level, obviously being stuck in the house, not being able to socially interact in a job that requires you to develop an entire market or develop an industry, it seems tough without really meeting people physically and speaking to them, right? But the industry, by and large, I think that for me, it's quite specific. It's digital audio, and I think that with a small sort of slowdown in March or thereabouts, we saw it sort of grow and pick up because people realized that, hey, listen, I'm going to be stuck at home. I got to redefine how I consume my media, and so it really did move, and hopefully that's there to stay, right? We had a good year, unlike I'm sure. I'm
Sadly.
sorry, some people.
No,
Yeah.
don't be sad. It gave me a lot of time to rethink my strategy. So.
Yes.
Great.
Precisely. I think you never what you call it, stay still. You keep on have to think about how to get out of the situations.
How
If
to
you're really
recalibrate.
you're really in the situations, see what is going on, and then you really have to take actions. I think now it's time to take actions, think and move at the same time. So that is what.
I think somehow the pause, I think, allowed us to rethink our strategies and recalibrate if we have to. In fact, my first question is, I'm going to direct it to you, Song, is like, MDEC is in the business of digitalizing Malaysia, right? And definitely COVID has accelerated everyone's move into digital, right? My question is, did this make it easier for MDEC? because everyone is now on digital and in that situation?
First, for those of you who want to know more about MDEC, go to our website, www.mdec.my. You'll know more about us. We are a government agency driving the digital economy of the countries. Yeah, has it been easy for us or easier for us? We are very busy, but I think for us, for me, I think is easier. The reason why is because we don't have to do a lot of awareness. Before this, we had to do a lot of awareness in order to convince people to come on board to digitalize. But now people are asking about how to do it. So if you imagine a funnel, we used to do a big funnel. That means we have a lot of activities, and the success may not be so good. But with this, currently, the interest coming in is what you call is great. All we need to focus is on how to widen the funnel so that more people will be successful. And we do this with the partners. So together with partners, we drive this the conversion from being, come into being e-commerce or digitalize their businesses. We work with partners to drive so that we have a bigger success rate or higher success rate. Yeah.
Great. And I think you talk about data, and Nico definitely, in this age, I would say, did you ever stop looking at data, especially now that we are, the industry is affected by and large by COVID?
I think data is one thing that is consistent. Even before COVID, even before the analog days, there must be some sort of data. Appreciation of data is something that is not present before, but now since everybody's talking about it, therefore it must be important. But in my case, I did not start my career as a marketer. I started my career as an engineer. I love information. I love data. I love the science of it. When I was exposed to human behavior and I said, maybe we could codify that, that was the geek inside of me. But at the end of the day, now more than ever with digital technologies, you could track almost everything, right? When you could track something, therefore you could act on it, if you ask me. Data to me sings every day. You show me data, I could interpret it in so many ways. Data is interpreted based on how you see it. So don't trust data also completely, obviously, right?
Correct.
Your reality, maybe not my reality. So, sometimes when everybody wants to fight for it, you must have a bigger view of it and really go into your business. Put context into the data. And I've never stopped looking at it. It even got more exciting this day because it is the only thing that I can do to make sure that I target the right customer at the right time with the right message, with my right product, and perhaps do a bit of the conversion. And just to share with you a bit, that's one thing that we did differently in the last 5 years. We really looked into our data and says, okay, how do we understand the consumers better? Is there a better way to cluster them, with all this AI and machine learning, a fancy word for regression analysis, but at the end of the day, you simplify things, it gives you an actual actionable insight. Like in my case, if I look at a person in my resort, right, I'm not going to ask male, female. That's not what I ask, right? What I ask is, okay, what drives you, right? Is it statistically significant? And let us test it out, A/B testing. If you pick it up, then okay, check.
Great. I like the thought about testing because it gives you confidence, right? And at the same time, it also influences what you're going to do next.
Correct. Well, it's not, would you rather have that or would you rather have someone like, hey, guess what? I think, that's different, right? Data is something that is actually you could touch and feel. So, but then again, cautious guys, whoever's listening, please don't take my word for it. Please do your own analysis. Do your own analysis because it's your business. You don't let anyone analyze it for you because if you let anybody, it's as if you're letting someone go into your house, manage your household, but you pay for it.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah, correct. And I like what you said about, trusting data, but I would rather trust a data scientist, guys, than anyone at business. Aditya, in your case, in-home channels or in-home media, as what you've shared, has already been increasing. That's in like watching television, streaming is increasing. In your case, podcasting. How has the flavor or how has the take-up in Malaysia been so far? And
so I think
what are the insights that our marketers can learn from the platform?
Right. So I think from a perspective, which I've kind of reiterated, our business was good. Obviously, streaming increased significantly. I think the one push that was required for podcasts, podcasts have been lingering around. Everybody's been sort of looking at them. I think people have really adopted, and like Song was saying earlier, they were curious about it, but they didn't have the time to do it. Now it was a necessity, so they kind of all just went and they started asking about it rather than you having to keep on educating them about it, right? So people were inundated with time. They had all of a sudden, this time on their hands, or they had a meditative space because there were kids just making noise everywhere. So they put on my headphones and listen to be peaceful, right? So this is something that has happened. Obviously, we've seen double-digit growth in consumption on digital audio, overall, which is incredible. The trajectory was there all along, and the projection is 22% growth year on year over the next 5 years. So it's a good. I guess it's been good. And data, when you mentioned data, I think that you absolutely nailed it. Unless the data is actionable, then it's just numbers, right? So you read it and you look at it. Unless you can do something with it,
Correct.
What's the point of it being there, right? Yeah.
So I echo that. What I was saying is that suddenly, there's a rush to go into digitalizations. What used to be a 5 years plan now become a 5 weeks plan. So you have to go into
I like that
e-commerce.
fact.
Exactly.
You have to go into e-commerce, rushing into it. That because you have kind of
You felt left behind.
yeah. So
Yeah, I think in my research of this adoption thing, when COVID-19 happened, I was laughing because when I was doing my thesis, 4 years ago, one researcher in 1980s talked about this situation. He said that we shape technology the same way we shape it. It's just a matter of a pandemic. He actually used the word pandemic to get us into that stage where everybody is using technology. He did not say digital, but he said technology. So I said, okay, wow, is this like prophetic or something, right? But it's true, when COVID-19 happened, what did it actually do? It forced our hands, it ties our hands at the back. It removed our alternative. There's no more alternative. It's this or die, right?
Yeah.
And normally, as human beings, as we are, we need to survive. So those who are in the digital space, like you, I also, when I jump ship from a traditional to like about 12 years ago, from a very big corporate, from where I am, I moved to a startup digital. My boss says, you're crazy. Nobody will pay for e-commerce. E-commerce is only 1% of anybody's budget. 10 years now, calling me and say, hey, do you have like a opening? And it's funny, Sorry, whoever you are, I'm not going to mention your name, but yes, that's a funny story, but it's a true story. It's like Noah's Ark, The rain is coming. Okay, fine, whatever. And then suddenly it comes, and you're not prepared. Then what happens next, right?
Yeah, that's correct, because I think e-commerce has never been a buzzword like a couple of years ago. Maybe bigger companies are able to do that, have started much earlier. But you're right, pandemic, I think, has really accelerated everyone's move there, right? And if I may ask, like, what are some of the big organizational changes that the pandemic has done to your organizations, and you think you're going to carry through in 2021 or beyond? And because I think on the reverse, the COVID situation has helped us a lot, and it could be relative that how we respond to pandemic, that turn the situation around and just capitalize on what's happening for the betterment.
So, if I can go first on that one,
Sure.
right? Interestingly, Marco, I was telling you the story of me being stuck out of the country for 3 months, right? When I was during this situation, and I happen to be in one of my markets, right? So India is one of my markets, and there's a dear friend and a CEO of a very large radio network. So when this pandemic hit, India was locked down brutally, and I'm just taking this context because it happened here as well. Maybe not to the degree that it happened over there, but he has 73 radio stations in 73 different cities, right? It's a business where, you imagine that DJ is in a studio and he's going to air and the transmitter is at one place and he needs to be there, and, what are you going to do? But now they couldn't, right? So they had to scamper, use technology, the word technology, to be able to now get the DJs broadcasting from their spare room or their garage or wherever they were, and still put a program on air, which was, which they did. they refined that. Obviously, the first 3-4 weeks were shaky as ever, but they were able to refine that to the realization. This great change came where he realized that radio revenues had dropped. He said, "How am I going to keep this business alive?" But then he realized that if he didn't pay rent for all those places, still got a program on air, and didn't have to pay the admin costs, the security costs, the cost of printers, the paper, all of that, instead gave them a subsidy allowance of 500 rupees, right? He was able to now run that 73-station business with only 3 studios in the 3 major cities. So that immediately allowed him, and now he plans, if going to 2021, he's not planning to open any of those. He's terminated the lease on all of them, right? He's saying, you do it from home, I'll just give you an allowance.
What you thought you couldn't do, now you could do.
You can, right?
Yeah.
And so
Sorry, Song, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a typical example of when there's a crisis, there's a lot of innovations. You notice during our history, during the World War II, there's a lot of innovation happening during that period of time. Same during this pandemic, there's a lot of innovations. New startup who is catered for the needs of this period of time. So I think so long human can keep on innovate and being creative, we will survive. So it's just when people talk about new norm, this is it, right? So the new norm needs new kind of thinking. So yeah, I think that is I think we will survive.
I think so. Yes, Nico.
Yeah, I echo them. I think you're right. Necessity breeds innovation. When there's nothing, as human beings as we are, we will find ways to survive at the end of the day. Creativity comes out of the most unlikely places, right? I have never been more creative when I was at home, right? Because you have removed your ability to be distracted whenever you're bored, you go out. But now you can't go out. So what do? You become creative, right? But the only challenge is, I hear my peers here, the only challenge with this is that although we see it as if that it's the holy grail, right? As a community, as people, we couldn't avoid the traditional businesses. They are there for a reason. And sometimes the challenge now is how do we then protect the people who will be impacted by this? Although digital is good for everybody of us, right? But not everyone could cope. You've seen companies are closing down, because revenues are not coming in. So I always ask myself, if I'm going to do this, right, how I'm going to protect my team? Because you are correct. With digitalization comes process improvement, comes the thinking of, you need to cut your people because they're no longer relevant. They have been replaced by robots or machines, which I keep telling my team, upskill yourself. In the past, you're a designer, be a webmaster, learn it. You're an admin, how to use technology to become an event organizer. Admin is like that anyway, right? But if you don't do that, then you definitely you'll be cut, right? Because that is what I notice in the market right now. People who are complaining in social media, people who are now in LinkedIn looking for are the kind of jobs that has never had the opportunity to upskill. Yes, technology is good. Yes, company can invest money. That's the easiest thing to do. I give you money, invest. But if the workforce is not upskilled, it falls apart. So I think that's what I'm trying to arrive at.
Yeah, I just want to relate back to the topics about how to win in the 2021. So yeah, it's important because right now, the industrial revolutions during that time, it takes longer time. The period of change is longer. So therefore, people can adapt and adapt easily. But during this period of time, I must agree, the change is rather fast and rapid. And then sometimes we cannot react fast enough. Therefore, we have a lot of issues that we have to handle. So, and when everything else fails, then you have to rely on the greatest resources. Yep. That is your creativity. You just have to think out of the box to survive. It's never too late. Truly, it's never too late. So if you have not gone into e-commerce, it's still time. So because why? Because the consumer are moving to e-commerce. So the market is growing e-commerce. There's still a lot of opportunities for people who want to go into e-commerce, and you can take this opportunity, right? Because the market is ready for you now. It just needs you to take action.
Yeah, I think it cannot be any more true that the best time to act is always now, right? I think regardless of how you're done.
YOLO, hashtag YOLO.
Yeah.
You only live once, you know?
Correct. And I'd like to follow through on that song. And I think during the pandemic, one of the buzzword that we often hear is agility. And I would like to ask the three of you, what is agility and how do you define it and how do you use that to your advantage? And for businesses who needs to be agile, what does it mean to be agile? And what do they need to do?
I can go first. Yeah. We are a government agency. So when during the pandemic, or more accurately, the MCO started when the government declared MCO, then during the time, we can start seeing that the industry player come in to support. You know, they come in, like, for example, the likes of Lazada and Shopee and the local marketplaces. You know, they come in and support, meaning is that anyone who want to come on e-commerce can come. So that, for us, we noticed that. So we quickly pivot our activities. What we have planned to do for the year 2020, we kind of quickly change this and adapt and address the needs of the market during that time. So what we have done is that we run a 5 days webinar, and then we got reach out to about more than 3 million of Malaysians, and about more than 67,000 of the viewers tune into our content. And then during the last few months, we run the Penjana programs, and we have benefited like 210,000 of the SME, and 45,000 of them are first-time transacting.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that whether you're in whatever kind of organizations, you must be ready and be sensitive what the changes are happening in the environment, and you quickly have to pivot. Your true north is always there. For us, the true north is serving the nations, getting the SME to, at least for my divisions, we're getting the people to go on board and sell on e-commerce, and that is the objective. How we do it depends on the current situation, and we sort of capitalize on it. I suppose other organizations the same. And if you are able to capitalize on it, the crisis is no more a crisis, it becomes an opportunities. Yeah.
Yes,
agility, I mean, that's a great question, right? So when you look at agility, it goes back to what Dr. Nico was saying as well, right? So you need an organization that's prepared to be agile, right? You need the skill sets, and kind of a little bit above that, you need the culture to be agile, right? Because without that, agility can be chaos. So you can have people going in different directions without knowing why they're going a certain space, right? And that is, it's destined for ruin, right? So I feel that agility is a cultural informed decision inside an organization, right? So people know why they're going a certain space. Obviously, the reasons for it could be many. COVID is a reason, right? Why people had to be, but if you were clearly able to articulate that COVID happened, and here is the opportunity, like you said, that has been presented by COVID, and we're going to go after that opportunity, and then resource yourself in a way where you know that you have the right people who believe in that mission, now going after that opportunity. I think that is creating an agile organization. That people can do that rapidly and keep doing that. I think it starts from the top and comes down, right down to the person who is, turning on the machine, right?
Great.
So
It's both behavior and attitudinal as well. And right at the very top of the organization, like up to everyone there. And I think, Nico, this rings in very much true for your organization, especially with,
with that size of an organization, right? Okay, I mean, your question was, how do you become agile? What is agility, by the way? Interesting, because about a week ago, this is one of my topic. And it also asked me, what is agile? I've been hearing about this word, but what does it actually mean? Normally, when you say agile, what is the first thing that comes to everybody's mind? Speed. What does the boss say? When do you want it? Don't ask your boss, when do you want this? They will say, yesterday. I need it yesterday. No, I learned that the hard way. I never give them, I tell them this is when I'm going to give you. But anyway, kidding aside, when we talk about agility, everybody thinks speed. And if you do a proper research, you have to go back to the definition of the word. The word agility, if you Google it now, every dictionary that you read through, it talks about actually the physical movement, changes, quick changes. They use word like quick, but it attributes to physical changes. Now, if you look at the industry and people who are researching the topic of agility, there has never been a consensus of what is agility. Because if you go per industry, it depends. That's why when you talk about speed, what did Albert Einstein talk about speed? Speed is relative. It depends on who's looking at it. A moving car and you're stationary, of course it's fast. If you're moving together, you're slow or you're the same, right? So then how do you then define? There's this researcher, Shepard, and if I remember Shepard and Sam, 2006, they actually defined it the right way. If you ask me, that's the perfect definition. They said, agility is the rapid movement of the whole body with changes in velocity in response to a stimulus. Quite sounds smart, right? Then you take that and said, okay, how do we define it in the business context? I'll redefine it in the business context. They said rapid, quick, very easy to understand. Whole body, whole organization is the rapid movement of the whole organization. And he says, with response to velocity, he did not say speed. Two different things. Those of you who are taking physics, you know this. Speed is what? It's scalar, change of distance over time. Velocity is change of speed over time with a direction, right? So if you say change in velocity, it means that you need to change your speed, change your direction. If there's no change in direction, you can't call yourself agile, right? And lastly is response to a stimulus, meaning you look at your threats and your opportunities out there because you could see them for now you look at that. You pivot based on what you know. Because speed to an e-commerce is fast. Speed to an oil and gas company, they won't come to MDEC and say, I want to digitize. Because their business is not about that, right? So I think it depends on the industry. Speed is relative. To me right now, we want to be fast, but because our processes does not allow us to do so. So what does speed agility means to us? So agility must be defined in the context of who it is talking because of the relativity. So sorry, I get passionate about this topic because it's what I know, and I think it makes perfect sense these days, right? And then now, how do we win the 2021? Don't just talk about speed. It's very foolish for you to keep on driving your team. They're gonna get tired. People are, you even the horse gets tired, the car gets tired, run out of gas.
Yeah.
Right? So do it properly. Increase the speed. You accelerate properly like how you do with your cars. And the direction. Every leader, every CEO, you go to him and say, boss, where are we going? If they're not going to give you a direction, run away,
I think you've really raised good, valid points, and not only that, the elements of agility is not just being able to pivot, but you have to have direction as well. I think it needs to be landed that way because speed is just speed, but if you're not going in the right directions, or to use
you fall off a cliff.
Yeah. So when you
won't be guided. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you talk about speed, speed of doing things is if you do things repeatedly, so you can do fast, and that's why organizations have standard operating procedure. So they will follow certain standard operating procedure. Right. But to me, sometimes standard operating procedures can limit agilities. So I think moving forward, the organization should look into standard operating behavior, so that when you create a culture, so that people will work within that culture, and then you have this standard operating behavior, and people behave correctly. Then they know what to do, and then you release that kind of creativity and potential of individual, and that I believe, and that what I see in my team currently. Everyone is moving at the same time, but I have no worry because they know what needs to be done.
Where they're headed to.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. In fact, if we have questions, time now. Okay. We're talking about the last 4 days, data and digital. How has this, helped the organization ever so more now during the pandemic for you guys? How has it accelerated as well? And are there new changes that you have adopted, new ways of, reaching out, doing things, as well as, talking with and talking to consumers that have helped you change your strategies, change your directions for that matter, or even, getting more businesses and accelerating your growth?
In my case, from a very, we are a brick and mortar company. We are a resort. I can't make money online. They have to be in the resort. And with all these restrictions, therefore, it begs the question, what then can you do, right? From a marketing point of view, reaching to customers, it has always been there. The travel and the travel industry, thanks to the airlines out there, has introduced, the online booking, removing that barrier between going to a physical, the tourism, that travel operators. Last time you have to go and buy your tickets.
Yeah.
Now it's all online, all self-service, because the technology allowed you to do so. That part, okay, we have been doing the same things like everybody else. What changed is the customer experience. Now everybody's thinking about how can we use technology to make sure social distancing is in place, safety is in place, and at the same time, don't go beyond and exploit data. Be ethical about it. And the industry is still very young. We don't know. We're like babies, and children given toys. We were so excited because we are seeing the good side of it. And when it grows to a certain level, the question is then how do you manage? How do you make sure that governance is there? And I think everybody is trying to figure that out. Even me, I don't have the answer for that, because every time I give an answer, another colleague who's coming from a different industry will say, no, that's not what's happening in my case. So I think, like I've said, reality is reality, right? So to me, what changed? I think the biggest change really is the realization of the organization that it is important. To me, that's the most success. Because in the past, you ask your boss money for digital. No. No money. Because business is always about that, right? Yeah. Where the money is, you put your effort there. And true visionary leaders are the only leaders who will say, okay, let's try out, right? And not everybody could be like that. Because if everybody could be like that, all of us will be billionaires right now. Unfortunately not. But yeah, I think, sorry, there's actually a question that my attention went there. Sure. Oh, and it's just to me.
Okay, so we have one question here. So to Dr. Nico, the outlook for tourism economy recovery remains highly uncertain as the pandemic continues to heavily hit the sector. How can the sector stay relevant in upcoming years?
Okay, number one, this will end. I will tell you. I may not be God, but I will tell you this will end. Just like SARS, just like any other pandemic, this will end. Social media is just making you crazy, Stop looking at social media, fake news and all of that. Calm down, because this will end. And when it ends, you have to be prepared. What you do now is prepare. Now that the tail end of the market, what I call the laggards, who did not believe in digital technology before, is now believing, like you said. Why? Because there's no more option for them. There's no other way. In case in point, I have a few friends and a few bosses who called me and said, Nico, Netflix is so good, huh? You know that you could watch from your phone and then continue to your TV? And I'm like, boss, like few years already, No, but that comment made me realize that, the laggards that I call, the adoption rate, the laggards who are the last piece of your majority are the people. Who are these people? These are the decision makers. The people who has money, They are the ones, no matter how smart you are, without resources, you can't do anything. And if you can't convince them to use it at the right point in time, nothing happens. So industry, how do you prepare? Tighten your belts right now, obviously, right? I mean, don't overspend at a time that you can't make money. But at the same time, try to invest a bit of that money in moving it towards the right direction. Don't be afraid of digital, obviously. Yeah.
Right. Yes, Song.
I think with so many webinar like this, sharing about technologies and how you can use technologies to improve your business, create new values and all that, sometimes businesses are confused and sometimes they don't know where to start. I always tell the businesses, you look at what value are you deliver to your customers. For example, if you're selling something, it's based on cost leadership, meaning is that your operations must be good to reduce the cost. Use technology to enhance that. So that will, for me, that will be the guiding principle. That is, use technology. There's so many out there. You use data for what reason? You use data to enhance customer, what you call experience, or you use data to create new products. Depends what are you doing. So like you say, it's the same technology, you can use it differently to enhance your value. So the principle never changed. You still need to deliver values to your customers. And how you, during this time, because there's some movement restrictions, then you have to create new values. And that new values is based on technology, how to enhance that you already have, and then use technology to deliver that. So I believe that is the very important. That is how you can choose and pick which technology and how to use it to enhance your value. Yeah.
And I think one good technology that we have undermining is definitely podcasts and music. And
Yeah.
care to share, Aditya, like what sort of,
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think that. Sorry, I was thrown by the question on the thing. I would wanted to take that, but obviously technology. Look, I think that the way that everything is evolving, audio has come a long way as well. One of the things that I think you mentioned, which was C-commerce in your session, which is conversational commerce, and so imagine, now this is at a nascent stage, but just imagine a reality in the world. Most people carry smartphones. They're either tethered to their car in some way or the other. Programmatically, you can now serve voice interactive ads. It doesn't have to be Alexa in your car. You could be listening to a stream or you could be listening to a podcast, which could, quite easily have you, it pauses for a response from you. So it'll say, hey, listen, it seems like you enjoyed that ad. Would you like to test drive that car? Say yes or no.
amazing.
And all of a sudden, you're reading off guy. You're like, oh, my car's talking to me, right? So, and until you say no, and then it'll move on to the rest of that program. It's almost like your media is now started to interact with you, which I feel is going to be that way in which you engage with it.
I
right?
think so too. I think it has becoming to be more personalized.
Yep.
To a certain extent, it sometimes you get fear. It's like, why is this ad talking to me now? Like, I was just thinking about it.
Scary.
Right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
in fact, that's personalization at
I
scale.
have to ask you a
and-
question.
Yes.
When you buy your phone, did you even read the terms and conditions when you accept before you open?
No, I can't just. I just store off everything.
Yeah.
I know.
You don't even know if people say, you are selling your house to me and you're like, yes, please accept because I want to use the phone.
I think all of us have that. All of us have that. Just almost automatic action. Like, where do I
Yeah.
click
Correct.
next?
Yeah.
Right? Or I agree. Or
Yeah.
I accept.
This is what I'm saying. The governance and ethics must come from the people who's using technology because consumers will never read.
Yeah.
No matter what you put there, to them, I want to use it,
That's it.
And I think that's the ethics. And I'd like to talk about ethics a lot of times because if no one does it, so all of us will be in chaos at the end of the day. People will just throw in, you did not read, it's not my fault, right? But then again, it's the same thing anywhere. So, yeah.
I agree. I think it also that's one of the bigger topic. GDPR is personalization and security. We have one question here coming from Mindy. What does the panel think about the increase in Facebook groups for sellers and buyers, as well as the Facebook marketplace? Would this trend continue, or will something new take over?
Can I answer this first?
Sure, Nico, go ahead.
Shout out to my Muda.my friends. I work for Muda. I used to be the head of marketing for
Yes.
Muda, right? So this has been happening all over. And trust me, in Asia, Malaysia is actually the #1 marketplace in terms of buy and sell, secondhand. Because of the nature of the culture, Muda.my, everybody thought it's a local company, but it's owned internationally. And these Facebook groups, actually, they are competing against with the Muda.my and Carlist and all of these
Carousel.
marketplaces. I think they will not go away because it is in the nature of the people to hoard and to sell. One month's one month's garbage is another month's treasure, right? So I think this will not go away. I think a lot of players will come in, but the true test for this, and I've seen it over and over, it's always about who's first in the market, because it's very hard for you to move to another. This type of business is very, very hard to move because it's about trusting the community inside it. Now, if you manage to build like a shady type of community, nobody will try it. And the true test of a platform like this is simple. If I put my secondhand item, how fast can I sell it at the price that I want?
Yeah.
Right? So go Muda.my. Sorry, Facebook, but Muda.my.
Absolutely. Yes, Aditya.
Can I just maybe ask a question, because you've been in that space, and obviously, trust is a big factor. I think the one thing that Song mentioned earlier was also that people have changed their mentality. Obviously, e-commerce is something that people have been forced to get used to, and the big adoption challenges that we had in 2019, 2018, just going back as far as 2004 or 2006 when what was it, Zalora or whatever launched, right? Way back when they said, oh well, Malaysians just don't trust it. They're not going to put their credit card online. They're not going to do this. Moved on to, okay, fine, you can do it. Online banking can still transfer, or cash on delivery. Now everybody got forced to do that. I feel has the mentality of Malaysians generally changed, where they are now far more accepting of e-commerce? And does that create a risk? Do you think that places like this, where they're thinking, yeah, it's e-commerce, so I can buy
okay.
one, right? So
Yeah.
So I would answer the questions differently. You say that increased Facebook group in the seller and buyers, and that means the transaction may be happening.
It's happening
in Facebook. Facebook started as a social media for sharing news about friends, and then they get into e-commerce. So what I'm trying to say is that they have evolved. Facebook is no different than any one of the small organizations we have here. The fact that they become so good in this because they continuously innovate, and the what do you call that? The smaller guys or the SME, they have the same situation. They are the same. So what happened is that they have evolved into this. Will the trend continue? I don't know. Somebody more innovative may come along and overtake this space as well. Because you look at the likes of TikTok now.
Correct.
Yeah, they have moved from entertainment into e-commerce. So now e-commerce become a merger of entertainments and e-commerce. So things happen so fast, so rapid, because technology come, to create the new opportunities, new value, and then and will this trend continue? I do not know. That the innovation will take its course, I believe.
You mentioned e-commerce, entertainment commerce.
Yeah.
No, just to share. Sorry, they are correct. Will it continue? We don't know. It's an evolution of the platform. Transaction, but I believe human behavior, it will always be there. It's just a matter of who's smarter enough to give you the best next iteration of that. It's like the smartphone. When it's introduced, it changes everybody, right? So now we're just waiting for the next brilliant guy who's going to develop that. Has Malaysians changed transactions? Actually, ever since, Malaysians are very much willing to buy online. I think the question is how much confidence they have to increase that transaction size. In the past, 10 ringgit, fine. 20 ringgit, fine. 5,000 ringgit, hold on. But now I'm buying. Yeah, but Asia, travel is fine, right? Because it's and it's attached to unknown brand.
Right.
Unknown brand, I don't know, right? But imagine buying a 7,000 ringgit, let's say, iPhone 12 Pro Max, who runs out. People are crazily buying online, and they're more than willing to be delivered. In the past, that wouldn't happen. I go to the store and buy it because I know I can touch and feel. But now, with all of these things, because I have to shout out to Lazada, Shopee, they made it possible to feel it so much easier. It comes to my home. Back then, I don't know where it is, right? So the whole ecosystem must work together, logistics, the partners, like what he mentioned, which is, I truly support MDEC, because they will be the one pioneering this. It has to be a government thing. The government must allow us to do it, or else everybody's just doing their own thing. So yeah.
In MDEC, we always believe in this, right? So we can facilitate, but we still believe that innovation is out there with the industries. So we just have to create a conducive environment for these innovations to happen. Yeah.
Great. And I like what you guys have been saying about planning, right? I think transformation is somehow there has to be a sense of planning as well. And on that note, I actually wanted to ask you, there's a saying that goes, if you plan to fail, you're failing to plan, right? And for 2021, if there is one thing that you think marketers or even businesses should do to win 2021, what would that be? What would your advice be? Who wants to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, Song, go ahead.
Whenever I go for sharing like this, right? So there will be people listening in, I want to go in e-commerce and things like that. What I'm concerned is after they listen and all that, no action is taken. So I say that if you want to be successful in e-commerce, the first thing, especially the bosses, start buying tonight. Today, start buying something. Because if you don't experience it yourself, how the whole process go, you have no confidence. Because from the 0 to 1, start buying. There's a lot of anxiety in that particular person. Can I trust this? Can I, what will happen if they don't deliver? Suddenly the next morning, so fast it delivered. Then they realize, things have changed so much. So whatever make them successful all this while may not be the right formula moving forward. So they really have to experience it. So first thing, if they want to win 2021, small step, start buying. In fact, that is a big step for most of them.
So, Song said, very good. Experience it. Make sure. Nico.
Okay, a few things. One, calm down. I always say this. How do you succeed? You calm down, because if it's new to you, you're going to be overwhelmed. Go back to who you are, right? Understand your business. Where is the money coming from? What activates that? And think about it. How can I then improve that one by one? I always say WCIA. If I'm stuck, I ask that. WCIA, what can I automate?
That is a good one.
What can I automate? That leads me to another question, and that's it. So just focus on that, and I think you'll be fine.
Aditya.
From my side, it's what should marketeers do in 2021 to win? I represent an industry where I would be forced to now plug that, yes, advertise on audio and do digital audio programmatically, right?
Why
So
not?
this is a plug, but obviously I feel, what Dr. Nico was saying right there is, yes, absolutely, kind of, when you look at what has worked for you so far or this year, if there were any changes, and you have to assess the change that's coming in the same way that you were able to panic and address the change that came, right? But I feel like human behavior is not going to change that drastically in time. You'll have time. The vaccines are going to come. It's going to be a drawn-out process. It's not going to be as quickly as they went into lockdown that they're going to come out of this. Plus the hangover, if I may call it, of this is going to remain in consumers' minds. The habits that were created, the good ones will stay. The bad ones will quickly start getting thrown out of thing. And so I think that you just, what has worked for you, keep doing more of that. And that's what would be my advice, right?
Great. And if there's one thing that I can share with everyone, is just let's continue winning, and I think they will be a good guide or behavior for us in 2021. And work together, collaboration. And on that note, unfortunately, and I wish I had more time with you guys, I thought the 45 questions is enough. I only asked 4. To our audience, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that fantastic session with the gentleman here. Yeah, trust data scientists. It leads you to a lot of good things. And to everyone who's joined us across the Star Media, Star Group platforms, thank you so much. We hope to see you in the next one. And yeah, stay safe and have a very good Friday evening.
Hi everyone, we hope you have enjoyed the Reach Track panel discussion. It was very dynamic, it was very, it was very funny, it was very engaging. Unfortunately, we couldn't go through all the 45 questions. But hopefully you guys can rewatch this and then learn something new. Don't worry, this will all be online. But before that, thank you so much to Mako, Dr. Nico, to Song and Aditya for that amazing, amazing panel. And to you guys, thank you so much for staying with us until the end of the Digital X Data 2020 live virtual conference. As I've mentioned earlier, we're giving away 3 exciting prizes at each of the 8 sessions. All you need to do is complete a short survey by scanning the QR code that is shown on your screen or go to bit.ly/DXDsurvey8. We will be contacting today's winners sometime early next week. Ladies and gentlemen, Star Media Group's Digital X Data 2020 4-day live virtual conference is now a wrap. And from the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much for taking this 4-day journey with us, whether you have been tuning in from WebEx, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. We hope you have enjoyed and benefited from this program and are ready to emerge stronger in the next normal by redesigning data-driven digital futures in 2021 and beyond. If you encountered any inconvenience from our conference in these 4 days, please accept our sincere apology. And also do share your feedback in the survey as we continue to curate and produce greater event avenues and better event experiences for you and your businesses. On behalf of Star Media Group, I would like to thank our sponsors and partners once again for joining us in making this program and this journey a great success. To our exabyte partner Fusion X, to our gigabyte partners Ofo Tech, Palo Alto Networks, and Triton Digital, to our megabyte partners Experian, Rimini Street, and Tata Consultancy Services, our virtual roundtable partners IBM and ServiceNow, knowledge partners Boston Consulting Group, EY, Frost & Sullivan, Ipsos, Kanta, McKinsey and Company, and PwC, mobile messaging partner SendQuick, e-learning partner eLearning Minds, and our webinar partner Cisco WebEx. But before you continue with the rest of the day, remember to complete again this short survey and we will give you those exciting prizes, hopefully. If you need any assistance, please email us at events@thestar.com.my. 2021 will be crashing in about 3 weeks. There are still great uncertainties on public health and economy. Most importantly, I would like all of us to remain strong and optimistic. We made it through a challenging year, and I'm sure that we can all do better. Arm yourselves with the knowledge that we have acquired over the course of these 4 days, and let's strive to do better and let's strive to keep moving forward. Once again, my name is Myra, and I'm signing out. Thank you, and we look forward to hosting you again at the next Star Media Group event. Stay safe, stay adaptive, and stay innovative. Bye.
Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL on the go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere, at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go! With DHL on the go.